Okay, okay. Let's see if this is it.
We're on. We're on. Shall I?
Go for it.
Okay. Welcome to Keeping the Beat, an engaging web series hosted live by TNMEA in partnership with the CMA Foundation. Today is Thursday, July 16th, 2020, and the 62nd and final program of our series, which has provided 4 months to the day, actually. We started on March 16th, an engaging and interactive platform to connect with and learn from music professionals of all careers from around the world. My name is Julie Hill, and I am chair in the University of Tennessee at Martin's Department of Music. And I'm just the crazy person who first pitched this idea back on around March 8th to the staff in our music department initially. And these fine folks you see here on the Zoom became the Keeping the Beat team, and they were brave and just trusted me, and the world was turning upside down around us, and they jumped in and made it happen, and I'm grateful to all of them. They've selflessly provided hundreds of hours of time to this project and did so without compensation or complaint. And we are very proud of the repository of work for Keeping the Beat, which will remain a resource for music students, educators, entrepreneurs, and professionals alike. Tonight, we feature our Keeping the Beat team, which is lots of fun because I've been the only one pretty much that's been on the camera. Leif and Alexis have too, a few times participating in panels, but it's an honor to have everybody who's been working on this to have just a little time tonight to give them a nod and to have them talk about their role in the project. We encourage viewers tonight, as we have every night, to interact with us via the comments on the live stream. And if you're willing, it would be nice to have people share this on their own Facebook pages. So if you just click share from the live stream tonight so that we can give one final push to get the word out to as many people as possible, we would really appreciate that. Because again, it's nice to have live views, but it's all about the repository, the long-term impact that we hope that our program will have brought to the viewers this evening. So I'm going to turn it over to Alexis now, who's going to do some introductions for those who are on this evening for our team.
Thank you, Julie. All right, guys. First off, my name's Alexis Utusius Derryberry. I am the current president of Tennessee Music Education Association, and I'm also the music specialist at Las Casas Elementary in Rutherford County. Before I move on to the next person, I just want to give a shout out to my husband, David, who has cooked dinner every night for the last 4 months so that we could do this program. And also to my doggies, Winston Churchill and Maggie Thatcher, have been my constant companions during everything. Right, puppies? Right? Are we on the TV? Huh? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to Leif Cook. Leif is the past president of TMEA, but he was the president when this first started, and he is the head band director at Dobbins Bennett High School in Kingsport, Tennessee. He doesn't want to show his new dog, I don't think. No, okay. We still need to know what its name is. All right, we're going to move on to Fallon. Fallon Keith is a CMA Foundation Grants Associate, and CMAF's role as an organization was finding a way to utilize previously distributed grant funds to the TMEA conference in a responsive and meaningful way. Tiffany Kearns, the executive director of the CMA Foundation, and Fallon felt confident in this team's ability to carry on programming and find worthwhile ways to support music educators during a very hard time. Yay, the silent clap. Ed, we are so glad you're here, Ed. Tour coordinator for Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, UTM alumni and of the percussion department.
Woohoo!
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I had a lot of fun over the last 4 months working with all of you, and you all did such a fantastic job. It was just a pleasure.
Thank you, Ed. We're going to get into your role here in just a minute. All right, let's go to Lizzie. Lizzie, we give a wave, please. Lizzie is the music admin in the UTM Department of Music, and she picked up random pieces behind the scenes of KTB.
Thank you, Lizzie.
Thank you, Lizzie. I don't know if you're going to show your dogs. I thought we were showing our dogs. Now I'm the only one that did it. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to Caitlin. Caitlin was our graphic designer, and she did a fantastic job. All of our images that you saw, she did, and they were just fantastic, and she was a joy to work with. Kat, if you will give us a wave, Kat. Kat is a music educator in Henry County. You ran tech and managed various artists for the show, and we appreciate you jumping on so much.
Absolutely. I have two dogs, but one of them's in the room with me.
Oh, let's see. Hi,
That's Brody.
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 Oh, here he comes.
Yeah.
Good boy. All right, we're gonna move on to Carrie. Carrie, if you'll give a wave. Carrie is a music educator in Bartlett, Tennessee, and she also ran tech and managed various artists for the show.
Thank you, Carrie.
Let's see.
Including me, and I've got my two doggos too.
Oh,
They've been at every episode of Keeping the Beat.
yay. Thank you, Carrie. All right, we're gonna move on to Chelsea. Chelsea is actually not here. She's moving, but she was the previous programs coordinator at UTM and helped communicate with presenters and assisted with tech. And when you watch this later, Chelsea, thank you for all you did. We miss you. And last but not least, Miss Katie Smith. Katie is a graduate assistant for the UTM Department of Music, and she helped with advertising for Keeping the Beat.
Thank you, Katie.
All right, Katie, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Sure. So along with some of my other things that advertising duties somewhat fell to me to be the program statistician. And so I have a few closing stats to share with you folks about our show. And I'm going to screen share really quick. Let's see. Hopefully you can see this here soon. All right, I believe we're screen sharing. So final program stats. This program ran for 122 days with 62 programs, and we had a post reach of over 1.5 million people. So what that means is post reach is unique individuals. So that it meant a whole lot to me that over 1.5 million people have been exposed to our brand and our programming around the world. We had over 267,000 minutes of programming viewed in over 40 countries. So at this time, I'm going to kick it back on over to the next person.
Which I think is me. Katie, thank you for that. That's really overwhelming and wonderful. So, live views are one thing again, but just knowing that people are watching it in other places, and Zoom is such a great way to make the world a smaller place and know that we're not just talking about Tennessee folks, and this is reaching far and wide, which is wonderful. I see some typing in here. This is what we do. So I'm going to talk about it. So right now someone is typing into Google Doc and there's all these shiny objects and text threads going on, but that 30 people are watching live right now. It's just great to see how the team just always lets us know what's happening and to give us some motivation and know that folks are tuning in and engaging with us. But I'll talk just a little bit about the beginning of the program and what has transformed from there. But when I guess it was around March 8th or 9th, it happened differently in bigger cities, not in the South, but that was the day that, our chancellor said, we're shutting it down. And most people in Tennessee were like, oh my God, this is unprecedented. And my little hamster brain just initially was like, okay, what positives could come out of this? And I know everybody, not my hamster brain, everybody did this, but I had 4 gigs canceled in 2 hours over the scope of 3 months. It was just like, shut it down. And Ed could comment on this, of course, he's had tours shut down. But still, at the same time, you think about the opportunities with people being out of work and needing some income, but also possibly helping them launch their careers in some ways. I mean, for some of the artists we've had on, their careers are way launched, but we've also had a lot of that middle ground of entrepreneurship where that they needed a boost. And, you know, a little honorarium might not help them, but maybe a couple thousand views on social media, yeah, it might help them a little bit. And then we also had students at all of our programs who were home, and we needed to find a way to engage with them and give them guest artists and keep them motivated. And in some cases, they had more time than ever to compose music, to work on creative projects. Busy music majors don't have time sometimes for music, which is a real issue that we should examine as we go back into regular life at some point. And I think a lot of while COVID is a horrible thing that has killed people and parts of the economy, there have been some issues forced with this that will be long lasting. And the team talks about this a lot, like, and I know everyone does, but it's pushed the envelope, and the takeaways, I don't think we know right now what will be sustainable, but I know that it will have an impact that has some positives and not all negatives for us in the long term. So we started out just with what we could do. I made some big pitches initially I was thinking associations in the nation with those folks that are executive directors of each one. I called Joshua Simons with PAS, and like, this could start out being very global, and realized that I was extremely overwhelming to people right away, which is what I do, and knew that I needed to pull back and said, okay, what can I control? And that's just basically me. And I went to our music staff, who we were all still there, and yelled out my door and said, can we talk? Can we have a powwow, you guys? And we did, and told them about the idea and said, we need something positive to latch onto right now. And each one of them just said, and you can see the music shirts on tonight. They were like, yep, whatever you need, let's do it. Let's find something positive. I mean, and we did that in 3 days. And March 16th, we had our first show, and you start with the people you know. And I initially sent the request to present to put it on our alumni page, and I'm chairing the department now, but for 10 years, I was the percussion coordinator. So my tribe is generally percussionists. And so, of course, I sent it to everyone and tried to cast, and Leif and I have laughed over this a lot, but I tried to cast the biggest net possible, but my kids are going to help their teacher. And so all the percussionists were like, we're on it. And so then we had like all these percussionists on the show initially, which is great. But I'm like, can you talk about anything other than percussion? That would be great. Like songwriting. Do you have another?
I actually hadn't noticed there were that many percussionists running. That's surprising to hear, frankly.
You're so funny. But it's like, can you talk about anything other than the fact that you're a percussionist? So that's kind of where we started from. And then when the convention had to cancel in person our state music convention, Leif or Alexis, I'm not sure which one, I had asked Alexis to be on our show, I think, and then she plugged me in to the bigger group and got Fallon and Tiffany on board, and just, hate to use that word pivot, but that's what we did. And just right away they were like, no, let's do it. Let's reappropriate these funds and try to create some long-term educational opportunities for people out there. And if it's Tennessee is our constituency, which is great, but if it can expand beyond that, why not? And that's where we started. So 10 days of Corona connection morphed very quickly into the bigger Keeping the Beat, and that's basically the history of our program. And I want to turn it over to Fallon, Leif, and Alexis to talk about funding a little bit and how that tied in.
Yeah, so I think it's a goal of the CMA Foundation not only to provide access to students all over the country for music education, but also knowing that we're located in Tennessee and Nashville is known for being Music City. We really want to see music thrive in our state. And so part of this funding stream really was just because we wanted Tennessee to have the best conference there was out of all of the MEAs. And we love all of our state MEAs, but we knew that Tennessee had the potential to be big and good. And we've just been so impressed with the way that the funding has improved the conference over the last several years. And knowing that, you know, it was probably March 12th when I think Nashville at least started to get shut down, we made the decision that we needed to pivot, like Julie said, and Alexis said, that these funds were supposed to be going towards the conference, and the conference no longer was going to be able to happen. And so Leif and Alexis really took it on themselves to figure out a solution, and brought in Julie. And we couldn't be more thankful that these funds are going towards something that's meaningful and providing professional development and opportunities for students to be engaged during this time. And I can't believe how much this has been taken off, and the fact that NAFME has been really impressed with y'all. And we're just so thankful to be a partner with TMEA. And I also want to give a shout out, because it's not just because of these funds that this program was able to happen. That, like Julie said, UT Martin has, given many volunteer hours. None of these folks are being paid to run this program. It's all volunteer led. And for that to be happening behind the scenes of something that so many people have enjoyed being part of is just crazy to me. And so thank you so much to the UTM crowd. Thank you, Julie, for having this thought and having the brain power behind it. And thank you, Leif and Alexis, for trusting in this pivot. And this has been incredible.
I will tell you that when the opportunity to pivot came about, there were no other options for us. Our conference had been canceled. And so it wasn't a hard decision to take a chance, because there were no other options available. And then to see what it became very quickly was an amazing thing to witness. And especially for TMEA, because TMEA is getting all the credit. But the truth is that Julie and UTM, Alexis has done, look, I've just was the guy who kind of said, hey, let's do this. But Alexis on TMEA's behalf has done jillions of hours. But Julie and the UTM people are really how it happened. It was a karma moment where this whole thing, the whole platform was in place, and TMEA got the opportunity through CMA Foundation to redirect some funds and make it even more viable. So, TMEA doesn't take a lot of credit for its inception, but was happy to be able to contribute.
I'll never forget that day when you guys were like, let's do it. And then you sent me an email or maybe a text. I probably have it in our thread, but it was like, okay, Julie, you are our online educational specialist for the state. And I was like, what? It just happened. I was like, all right, I'll figure that out later. So I was like, I have a title.
And I want to say that, Julie, really and truly, this would not be what it is had it not been for you and the UTM crew. The way that you were able to get people, Caitlin, who did such great graphics for us, the way that you were able to come up with the idea with the Google Doc, it just was such a high level, as with everything you do, Julie. It was just a very high level, very professional, and I know we've all learned a lot from it.
Well, Alexis, we'll not make this the Julie show, but we've all learned as much from you, and the technology piece to this, which we put last on the program, not because it's least important, because it's the biggest key, I think, to helping people know how to use some of this technology to do some things like this for their own. Your time commitment to this, as Leif said, has just been, and you've been unfathomable. I've seen you panic a few times, and rightfully so, but you've never just thrown your hands up, and you dig in. So I really admire that about you.
Y'all all deserve a huge round of applause.
I know Ed would agree. Sorry, Fallon, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that y'all deserve a huge round of applause.
They do, and I'm sure Ed would agree. This whole thing is it's very, I don't know, am I supposed to say girl powered? Is that okay to say girl powered?
Yes, it is.
Isn't it though? It way is. And so I'm just glad to be watching on the sidelines and feel like a contributor. But what a girl powered thing that has impressed the national music education community. And Alexis will tell you that we have heard from colleagues around the country, and all the viewer stats tell us that people have watched from around the globe. And just an amazing thing to be part of. and Ed and I, even Ed did more than I did, sort of guiding some of the conversations, but it's been a pleasure for sure.
Yeah, make no mistake. I mean, I grew up with four sisters. I learned from an early age that I'm the inferior gender, and this only supported it so much more. These gals have done an amazing, amazing job. I'm so proud just to be a part of it and have been through the course of this. But I've seen what they did and the amount of hours that these girls put into it, and the creativity and the direction and the persistence, and they just had that we can do it, we will do it, we will do it every night kind of attitude, and that's just it's just been amazing to watch, and I love it.
Thank you all. Katie, do you want to talk a little bit about budget and advertising and some of those details there? I mean, we've been sort of generalizing, but let's get into some nitty gritty of what worked.
Unmute myself first. Sure. Okay, so I know that probably some of the key things about we had to consider with the advertising and marketing piece of this was certainly taking a look at assessing every week, and that was really really critical for us. You definitely want to make a plan in the beginning, but you can't be locked into that. And I think it's so important that, you're constantly watching and assessing what works and what doesn't and talking about it with the group. And so that was a real key point, for us as a team. And that was, like I said, discussed weekly. I don't know if Alexis, Fallon, Leif, do you have anything you want to add to that real quick? Any comments?
We started out just really not knowing. We just kind of started in uncharted territories. And Katie, you were such a help in letting us and taking time and talking with the folks at Facebook on how do you correctly promote this. Oh, if you have too many pictures and too many words, you're going to get lost in the algorithm. So I think learning those type of things that if you're watching this to try to also do a program like this, that you'll need to know. Just you did such a great job figuring out those things that we have no idea.
Well, thanks. And that was a real learning experience for me. I think just, I do have dabbled a little bit in the past with advertising and marketing. But really since I started my graduate assistantship position with UT Martin, did I tackle the social media aspect of this. So I felt like I had a little bit of experience under my belt. But working on the Keeping the Beat Prod series was really, forced learning at a high rate of speed. And I guess just a couple of things that I wanted to talk about in terms of takeaways and that I just wanted to share with you folks. Probably the first point would be, if you're taking what we have done and thinking about wanting to do your own programming on an online platform, but this is applicable to any programming, be sure to set aside money and time for advertising. I see this mistake a lot in the arts and just small programs is you spend all of your money on the programming, but if nobody knows about it, it's a real shame. And it's a little bit of money and time goes a long way, especially on social media. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But another thing would be that was really helpful for us is creating a schedule. And that was really key. We had our and communication within the team about we need artists confirmed by this time so that Caitlin and I have enough days to get images that are appropriate, job titles and session titles scheduled. And if that way happens too close to the last minute, then stuff goes out that with misspellings, and so that did happen a few times, and having to take it down and make corrections. So having a schedule is really key, and communicating that schedule to your team is really important. I guess this is a few little things that we also learned along the way is trying to get your content to look as professional as possible is really important to help people pay attention to what you're doing. Just putting text only, crickets. You can do a lot by adding a photo. And just a couple of quick tips there. Professional photos are really important, high quality, nothing fuzzy. But as Alexis mentioned earlier, a big takeaway for us was learning that if you are creating an image, I think a lot of times what we want to do is put together that 8.5 by 11 poster that has tons of text on it and share that as an image in the Facebook feed. And that is definitely something we learned the hard way on. That will kill. Facebook's algorithm doesn't like lots of text on an image. It's just want something simple with maybe a simple message in the image itself. And so the golden rule there is you definitely want to use any photos, 20% or less text on that. So don't create one 8.5 by 11 poster and think that's going to cover it for all of your advertising. Try and have a separate photo and maybe share some of those details in the actual post itself.
Can you talk, Katie, about the having a still image versus the moving
Sure.
picture that we did just briefly?
Yeah. So another thing, just in working a little bit with the Facebook advertising experts, I think this is something that we know in the back of our heads, but they were able to confirm this is advertisements that use photos get much less tractions or stills than movies. And for us, we're cranking out advertising every week. So I'm thinking, realistically, I don't have time to create a movie every week of our speakers. But one thing that Facebook does that you can do to create a quick movie is when you upload multiple photos. What we did is I had Caitlin create, it's a 1-to-1 ratio headshot photos with just a simple date and name on there. And you can upload those and create a slideshow and add music to it. And that in turn becomes a very basic movie. You can do that. I was able to get it down to about 20 minutes of putting that together. And the organic reach, what organic means is not paying money to have a post or your content boosted, went up exponentially, but even the performance of our paid advertising dramatically improved. So that was a huge takeaway, and that is something that you folks out there can easily do on your own. You don't need a professional video crew. We did have a couple of professional videos made. Probably our best video that we did that we put out there was actually done by the Blackheart team for Joan Jett, and that video had alone over 90,000 hits, individual hits. And I was actually reading, I found a new metric on there that that itself was nationally was performing in the above average category for us. So that was really exciting. So the power of video and just taking a few extra minutes to go from a still image to putting together a slideshow is definitely worth the payoff.
And I wanted to mention for anybody that's watching that's wondering how much does it cost to advertise, we really varied that depending upon who our guests were that week. Sometimes we would spend $10 a day, right, Katie? Sometimes we'd spend 40, just depending on the reach that we wanted. So you really are able to, it's affordable to do advertising.
Yes, and I think particularly, you know, we get our advertising on social media is by far the best bang for your buck I've ever seen. So it's definitely worth taking some time to learn about it. But just to give you another quick stat, you know, the amount of money that we spent on advertising was, I believe, a little under 2,000 just for social media. But you could remember our post reach was over 1.5 million. And so when you're did a little math on it, we spent less than 1 cent per person. That's really cheap, cheap advertising. So it's definitely worth it. And so a great tool for tight budgets. So, and of course, if you want a ton of other things like going paperless, so definitely worth it. I think before I hand it over to back to Julie and company, I did want to show you one of another lesson learned here behind the scenes with advertising is I think for a lot of folks we see if you have, there's two kinds of pages out there, and if you're a local director, I think probably a lot of you have just set up a regular individual profile. I would strongly recommend converting that into an actual page. And what that does is it allows you to, it gives you more tools. You can actually look at behind the scenes insights to, you know, how people are viewing your content. But it does allow you, by having a page or a business page, to do paid advertising. As well as you can link your Instagram account to your Facebook page. So if once you're logging on, sharing a post on your Facebook page, then you can immediately click over and share the exact same content on your Instagram account. It's really convenient. But what I didn't know is that going back to when you choose to advertise, I kind of was like, I was familiar with boosting, and we create my little post and click boost, and somehow it magically reaches more people. Well, I learned, again, through my experience with the Facebook folks, that you can tell your post to do different things. And I'm actually going to go and screen share a little bit so you can kind of see what your options are. So let me switch. Okay, so this is some of what you are able to do. And what it asks you is, what is your marketing objective? And what I loved about this platform is you're like, it says brand awareness, reach, traffic, engagement. And if you're aren't a business student, you're like, what does that even mean? And so for me, what they've done is they actually, if you're hovering over these different areas, the little eye, you can click on it for more information. And the one we used a lot was a reach objective. And what that means is it gets your information to as many people as possible. Oops. So by hovering over that and learn more, what Facebook does is it brings up this help section, and it gives you a little definition about what each of these things are in the different stages and what you hope to achieve by that. So as you can see, Facebook does a ton. You know, you can sell your band shirt. If you haven't having a fundraiser and are doing t-shirts, you can direct advertising based on those things. So I would highly encourage you to check that out. but I honestly didn't know in the beginning that you could do more with your advertising than simply boost a post, and that there are different ways depending on what you want to get out and who you want to reach. Facebook will configure your ad to reach different people. They use different algorithms. So definitely worth checking out. And they give you a lot of helpful information so that you can define terms and help you understand you don't have to have a business degree to do this. So I found that to be really helpful.
So much, Katie. Thank you so much for all of your work that you did on this. The advertising obviously helped, and you learned so much, and we've learned so much. Thank you for sharing that. We appreciate you and applaud you for all your work. Let's move on to, let's have Julie, Ed, and Lizzie talk about selecting artists.
Yeah, this has changed a little bit. I mentioned earlier the fact that when we started with 3 days notice, you just reach out to your friends, your graduates, your tribe. That term is used a lot today, and I like it. And we had a lot of percussionists respond, of course, because of me. But then in seeing how COVID has transformed in 4 months to other national issues, we've really shaped the way that we create invitations. We had a vetting process where people could apply after Fallon and CMA got involved, which was great because it was much more formal. It was like, oh, we have people actually apply through a process, and we adjusted that many times. But and we got some great artists there that we would not have known about at all, which was lovely. But then the last month, I think just with who we've invited, who we've said we are missing this void, whether it was strings or Black artists or composers, and just reaching out to them directly, it's been a cool process to watch how that's changed. And I want to kick it over to Ed next, I guess, to talk about a little bit of his involvement and how we got some star power due to him.
Well, you and I had a conversation the beginning of March when you saw this coming down, and I was, I could hear the anxiety in your voice. What can we do? They're going to send the kids home. How can we keep them engaged? And you started, blowing these ideas off that really I kind of felt off the top of your head, but it's like, we've got to do this. We've got to keep them engaged. We've got to, do something that through UTM. And then it was a few days later, you started talking about the Corona connection. Look, and all these things just that were out as ideas started formulating. And then that when I felt like that, you started putting together your team of people to put the Corona Connect. And as it evolved, so did, the platform in itself, bringing on TNMEA and CMA Foundation, et cetera. But in terms of my participation with this, I'm a tour manager. I've been on the road for 35 years. I started out 20, plus years with the Maynard Ferguson's band. And so I basically went to my friends, like you went to your friends, to put together who's going to be inspiring to these kids, who are high profile artists that have gotten out there, that have been right where these kids are, but, kicked it in gear and said, I'm going to do something in this business. I'm going to get out there, and put it together. So I was fortunate, I had a segment one night that was a lot of fun. But then after that, I think I reached out to Tim Reese and Bernard Fowler with the Rolling Stones. I toured around the world with Tim, with the Maynard's band. And I worked with him on his Rolling Stones project called Stones World that had all 4 primaries from the Rolling Stones on a jazz context album of Stones tunes. Anyway, he and I go back for years. So, to bring him on, it's like, here's a guy who can come in and inspire and tell his story. And then, he was like, well, let's get Bernard in. He's been with the Rolling Stones for 35 years. Well, okay, let's do that. Let's hear his story, and let's get him, let's get both of these guys on for two different perspectives, but they're, arguably with, one of the biggest rock and roll bands of all time, So I thought, yeah, that brings some heat to the show. And then And then I fish with my buddy Carl Fisher down in Tampa. He's a great friend of mine. There you are. I see you back there, David. Yes, brother.
David
So-
made a rare appearance.
Yeah,
Yay!
wearing team colors. Carl Fisher, who's a fabulous trumpet player, he was out with me with Maynard Ferguson's band. Again, we toured, all over the world together for off and on for 9 or 10 years. Marvelous trumpet player, musical director for the band, has been with Billy Joel's band for the last 15 years, and is, one of the great players, but also he's a great music educator. He never went to college, but instinctually he's very inspiring to talk to, and as a personal motivator. I knew that Carl would be great for the show, and he agreed to do it. And he and his team, kind of like our Black Arts team, we kind of put it together. And I thought that was a great show, one of my favorite shows. And Carl's, he also brought some heat to the table. And then, as the show progressed, I put it on the table with my boss, who is also my dear friend, Joan Jett, if Joan would come on the show, and also her business manager and musical partner, Kenny Laguna, who has been with Joan since the early 80s, right after the Runaways band, and was very instrumental in navigating her career through the years, from the I Love Rock and Roll days, Bad Reputation, to those hits at that time frame, but still the ability to remain relevant through so many years. I thought it was a great combination having both of those guys on, and they were, and I thought it was a great show. And also I really want to thank my Blackheart team for jumping in, putting the videos here, just being so responsive, because once, when Joan said do this, she pretty much put the word out to our team. I want this done, and I want it done well, and that's really all it takes for, and they were so great, Gabe and Caroline and Carla and everybody. So love it that they jumped on. But my whole thing was, I love UTM. I'm an alumni from there, and have for all these years that I've been on the road, always loved coming back and seeing how UTM just kept growing and growing and growing. And with Julie, with you at the helm, they're steering that ship. It has only progressed so much better. So I always like doing what I can do. And I really just want to, if there are any alumni out there watching, take the time to go back to the school and see what you can do, see what you can contribute, see what you can give financially. There's these kids, I love coming there and talking to the kids. They're just like wide open sponges, and they just absorb everything that you have for them. And whether, they're going to make a career in playing, I really wanted to inspire these kids that there's so many opportunities out there, whether it's production, lighting, sound, video, staging, rigging. There's just so much out there in the touring world that is my world, that I've done for so many years, that those opportunities are there if you're willing to, get off your butt and get out there and kick it down and give it your best shot. So in picking the artists that we did, or that I got to help with, that was my main motivation, to try to get high profile artists that were great motivators, great players, and great teachers. So.
And you did exactly that, Edward, and we're so grateful. Initially when we partnered with, and Fallon and I have talked about this a lot with CMA Foundation, we thought there would be this wealth of artists, but then the artists all became so inundated with requests that they had to sort of protect them from that. And we had to go back to the internal group in terms of like, who can you get on? And you were really the catalyst that helped us plug in a lot of great artists. Lindsay L being the exception there. She was amazing and reached out to Fallon and said she wanted to help. And I'm grateful to Lindsay too. So, but thank you, Ed, for your star power, man. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
As far as programming goes, at the beginning, we started off as Corona Connection. And Julie reached out to all of her contacts first, which were mostly percussionists. And we realized really quickly in programming that every single person that we programmed in the first 2 weeks for Corona Connection was a white man. And it's impossible for us to do this show and separate from what is going on in the world right now, not just coronavirus, but the racial inequalities that I think have all sat with us now that we've had time to sit still and recognize, and I each hopefully do a lot of reflecting. So we made a commitment in keeping the beat to make sure that our presenters looked like our country and looked like our world of music. So that was that became a top priority for us, and we're all pretty proud of the diverse presenters that we were able to show on our show.
Thanks, Lizzie. You can really see that if you go back and look at the timeline of presenters. It's definitely gone from white to gray to black, and it's a nice mixture of things, and everyone's really helped contribute to their own connections and inviting artists, and we are all very proud of that. The next topic we had down, I know we're running a little short on time. I don't want to talk too much about things that are superfluous and don't help others, so I'm kind of scanning through here. Communication with artists and each other, I think that's anything, when you have a large group that's meeting remotely and has a shared email account, there, you know, there's a lot of learning that goes on there. And Chelsea, who's not on tonight because she's driving to Utah, was really great with this aspect of just, we ended up, yes, exactly. We ended up having a system finally where it was like, okay, you have to just use the Keeping the Beat at a Gmail account that was shared. And we created folders for every artist because we would just find that someone thought someone else was doing it. And I would do the initial setup and scheduling for the most part. But then after that, once we decided, we brought Carrie and Kat on, which was amazing because we were doing this every night. And then we were like, okay, in June, do less. And we're like, awesome. So we moved to 3 days a week instead of 5 days a week, which helped. And then we brought on Carrie and Kat, and they were incredible. They onboarded so fast. I couldn't even, I'm not surprised because they're such bright.
Well, I think if I could interrupt briefly, we had an artist on our show say this, but when Julie Hill asks you to do something, you say yes.
What?
And I learned that very early on at UTM, and I kind of carry that. When she asks, you say yes.
But you guys were great, and we were struggling a little with the 5 nights per week. And when you all came on and went to 3 nights a week, and we assigned each of you a person to the artist, so no details would be left undone in terms of communication. We got a real system going. Again, this is tedious stuff, but it was really important because like when Ed wrote, Carl's header wasn't right, and we've gotten a time wrong for a show, and there's so many people, it's like that stuff matters, the details matter, and people get pissed, and rightfully so. And you know, I'm responsible for it, so I'm like, it's my fault. Let's figure out how to tighten the ship, and we have tightened the ship 1,000 times, and it's a pretty finely oiled machine at the point of canceling. so but we'll take that knowledge, you know, into whatever projects that we have. Group projects are fun, but they can be, you know, we are all control freaks in a way, and there's a reason for that because we know the details. And when you have to trust the team, you got to have a good team and a good system. So we've learned a lot along the way. I wanted to see if it's what I have a note here. Sorry. Oh, this is actually a good thing to point out, but Ed or Fallon, I thought y'all could talk about this. Some of the hardest things to program are the bigger stars, and that's just because we don't have that direct access. We don't have their cell phone number, we don't have their email, and rightfully so, we have to protect them. But as a result, there's this layer of insulation, and you sometimes as an outsider don't know who's doing what on their team. And so I learned to ask, okay, what does every person that just got copied do? And that helped me learn how to work better with bigger stars. So I wanted to see if you all had some comments for that.
Go, Fallon.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Julie. Anytime that you work with an artist, it kind of changes the playing field. And this is such a unique time specifically. And as you mentioned, like the artists are incredibly giving of their time every day. The way that they interact with their fans, the way that they work with their management, they're incredibly giving people. And so during this time off, I think it's been maybe even more of a challenge because I think they're starting to realize that life is happening when they are not out on the road. And so having this time at home, I think a lot of folks are, you know, taking advantage of that, and that's great. But I also think that it comes with challenges because it's not the steady hustle, and it's all virtual, and everybody's tapped out at the end of the day. And so working with artists comes with challenges in every aspect, and Ed, you probably know better than anyone.
Yes.
But it's rewarding at the end of the day.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And you know, there are layers of management. And when this first evolved, I knew from the beginning I wanted to get Joan involved, just because of who she is and her ability to motivate, especially young female musicians that are told, you can't play a guitar. Well, she has some special words for that as well. But, you know, and as this evolved, you know, her management, her team is so evolved in terms of what everybody's specific functions were, that I knew that as we progressed, because when this first started, we had we had 35 shows, stadium shows with Def Leppard, Motley Crue, and Poison that we were trying to prepare for. So even though we didn't know, the variable was, are we going to do this tour or not? You know, I didn't really want to put this on her plate, you know, or pitch it to management until we knew. And once that tour was canceled and moved to next year, I really knew that that for her, getting across that line was as much as asking, and she's saying yes, and I want to do it, and I can't wait to do it, and I want it to be great. Carl, you know, with the Billy Joel camp, you know, there are parameters in terms of, I mean, all the guys from Billy's band are doing and giving of their time, but there are certain parameters that you have to, you know, respect Billy as their boss and the artist they work for. So, you know, in terms of fonts, size, print, and things like that, to just, you know, you have to be respectful. As a show like this, you're bringing on a high profile artist that works for a higher profile artist, you know, so those things have to be respected. But, you know, ask the great questions in the beginning of the show. Who does what, and how should it be labeled? How should we do this and make sure that everything is right, which I love so much about this team, Keeping the Beat team. Ask those questions. You know, the Rolling Stones, you want to talk about layers of management. Oh my God, these guys go, you know, each guy has their own individual manager and tons of people under them, you know, so that in itself is just the nature of the business, and getting to, you know, that person that can give you every answer is oftentimes the rock that you have to look under. So, but I thought the team did a marvelous job in navigating those waters. Yeah, for sure. And asking the right questions and being so concise with their Google Docs, and just not leaving any gray area for artists to wonder what's going on. It was all, you know, pretty much a cookie cutter stamp, but that cookie cutter stamp evolved from the beginning, from the, you know, early days. And it was like, this team learned every show, how can we do it better? And that's what I loved. And that's why it's evolved into this. And I'm just curious, this is season 1. Will we have a season 2 of Keeping the Beat? You know, the team is in such good shape. You know, they're in playing form. Why can't we do this some more? I mean, is there a reason why we have to stop at this show?
No, I was just thinking, Ed, this is a good tour managing team. We could be your
Yeah. Oh, I would love it. Woo.
Zoom tour.
Yeah, exactly.
We all have day jobs.
Ditch them, get rid of them. Come on the road.
I want to know if Kat and Carrie have anything to chime in on here, since they kind of came in midstream on this, and Carrie's been holding Zildjian.
I don't know. I think
Episodes.
you guys have covered a lot of the getting it started and everything. I think when Carrie and I came in, we were just on assist for a lot of things, and found ways to make our tech and our like managing of the comments during the show just more efficient. You know, you guys did all the setup.
Biggest thing for you guys was just, I felt like Alexis was really abused early on, because I mean, we're almost the same age, but she's so much more tech savvy than me. It's sad for me. And you two really gave her like, and plus the tech, we're going to talk about that, but the tech changed from this laborious ed experience, that like the hour and a half setup with all this stuff. And then it became like, click this link and it's done. So that's one of the biggest things. But you all came to her assist, which was my biggest concern initially when we were in the early days.
And we're both public school educators, and so we were also just at home. Our school responsibilities were pretty low involved, and so we were happy to just jump in and actually have something to do and get us out of bed before.
Yeah.
Alexis, I think we can skip this next little bit and move on, since we're running a little short on time, and ask Lizzie to run us through the archives and categories for people that are watching this down the road, and where those are housed and how they find what they need.
Yeah, sure. So all of these are going to be archived on both our Facebook page and on YouTube. And both of those locations have playlists. So we separated that into different categories. We just had such a variety of musicians on our show that picking categories to narrow them down was actually pretty difficult, because you can do other things with music as a music performer, as a composer, as you know, there's endless things you can do as a musician in the professional world. So our categories that we have are music education / therapy, music administration / business, music performers / composers, and arts advocacy. You can also find a whole playlist of our arts integration workshop, which we did through KTB, but it wasn't part of our nightly series. It was a separate workshop that us and Team EA, CMA, a handful of different groups came together for some professional development opportunities for our music educators in the state. So those are our playlists that you can find on both Facebook and YouTube.
Thank you, Lizzie. Thanks for doing that. I know you and Katie have worked on that together a lot too, so appreciate that. The archive is super important. And this is probably the biggest topic. We can run over, I mean, it's the last show, but I don't want to keep everybody on forever. Alexis, I mean, you've been the glue with the technology, and Catherine, Carrie have helped you, but I know you and Kat have had some emergency moments that I have just like, shut up, do not get in their way. They are freaking out. So the highlight there, please, because that's the bit I think will help people the most.
Absolutely. And that's why it's great to have a team that you can text and say, oh my gosh, it's storming and my Wi-Fi's out. That happens sometimes. Or I've got a weird echo, what should I do? So we learned a lot through the process. When I started on the tech, Julie, you just emailed me and said, hey, this is what we think we're gonna do. How can we live stream to different platforms? I was like, you know what, I don't know, but I'll find out. So I did some research that weekend, and I think we had just a few days before we were gonna start with Mike Holland on the first episode. And so I just took what you guys did with Corona Connection, and what you had was the actual presenter using OBS, Open Broadcast System, and using that to then broadcast to Facebook. And it's, I don't want to take up a bunch of time, but it's very confusing. And poor Ed had to do, when he presented on Corona Connection, he had to go through that process. And I'll just show you.
Well, it was fun. Fun.
And I do want to say that's one thing I got to spend a lot of time with a lot of the very beginning artists that presented, and it was nice to see them as people and help them through their tech stuff. I'm just super quick. I'm just going to show you what it looks like. Here is what I did is I just created, because I'm super extra, little sheets for everybody to see what to do. I can see Lizzie laughing, but we wanted to create just a guideline, and we wanted to help the artists as much as they could get going. But we showed them exactly how to download OBS, what it looked like. I'm a visual learner, if you can't tell, and exactly what to do. And OBS is a cumbersome platform, but it worked well until it didn't. So we were glad. We had one show where the poor person was just this size. We weren't able to get him to be able to open his screen big enough. So you have to understand that not everybody's tech savvy. So we just created this to help. Then they had to go to Caster so that you could live stream to more than one platform. We used Caster, and then later on we used Restream, just playing around with different things. But the OBS part of it was very confusing, not just for us, but for the people that had to do it. And it took hours sometimes to get just one show ready to do that. And then I'm not sure, ladies, how we stumbled upon just going from Zoom to Facebook. And then
I feel like Zoom to Facebook may have been my husband Joey Sam's idea, because he's probably the most techie person that I know, and once he finds like a tech project to do, he just has to do it until it's done or it's the best that it can be. Right. And so I think like when we were streaming from OBS to all those things, the artist video was having to go through so many different channels that the quality of video was very lacking, and that the sound would be jumpy and all sorts of things like that. And so I think he made the suggestion of experimenting with Zoom just straight to Facebook, and that seemed to work. Our YouTube views were about 2 to 3, or less than 10 for sure, when it was live to YouTube. And so just streaming to Facebook worked because we found that a lot of people watch the videos on YouTube after the fact.
And it's good to get that outside perspective when you get so dug deep into it. I think we were so like stuck on the fact that no, it has to go on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. Well, once we got rid of that, and when Joey made that wonderful suggestion, our instructions went from those 9 pages to this. Like Julie mentioned earlier, all the guests had to do was click on a link, we set up a tech time just to ensure that the sound, and if they were going to send video stuff. So it really became a lot simpler and less cumbersome. So it was a huge evolution of the tech process. And I think we finally got it down those last 2 weeks. So that was always good.
Thanks, Alexis. I know how many hours you spent on that. And in terms of account settings, I know TNMEA increased their account so we could have, like, if someone's going to host a large webinar, what are some things you and Leif did to make sure that we could have large groups on?
We just made sure that we had a certain account so that we could accommodate the arts integration workshop, and that worked out fantastic. We were able to then take that and live stream it. We did simulcast that to YouTube and to Facebook. We had over 500 participants in that. So if you're watching this after the fact and you need some help, just go to tnmea.org and email us, and we'll be happy to help you set up anything that you need.
Yeah, because you did set up simultaneous YouTube. Eventually, we circled back and you were able to set it.
We did. We circled back. We wanted to make sure Joan Jett's fan base could watch it from several platforms, and she had a lot of viewers on both.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap up here a little bit. We want to just have some fun personal comments. I know Brad has chimed in tonight, and Gary said which is really great. But if we could just share a few memorable moments, just for fun.
In the beginning, we did not realize, this is a good tip, OBS has its own microphone, so it picks up what's happening. And so Chelsea would text me, I can hear you typing, because I was doing the comments. I'm like, there's no way you can hear me typing. And when I go back and listen, you could totally hear my big old fingers typing. So you want to be careful on that on OBS. And then early on, we didn't realize that it could hear, and my husband said, you ready for some wine or something like that during one of the broadcasts. And so that went out to everybody and was mortifying, but at least he knew I needed some wine. That's one of my funniest things that happened.
Leif, what about you? Oh, Leif, you're doing it again.
Again, Leif with the muting.
Amateur error.
Lord, you should have just skipped me. I had to move. I was outside. I had to move somewhere with some light, so I apologize. I don't have a funny story except watching from a distance you guys struggle, and the in those moments and the text exchanges were always hilarious. And I could be the straight guy who would just say, "Hey, you guys are screwing it up just for fun," and
Reminded us. You let us know every time.
you know, it was all in good. It was all in good fun. But since you've called on me, I'll get serious quickly and say that, you know, what an incredible legacy this thing is going to have for TMEA. And, you know, TMEA has a legacy and will have a legacy, and this will be a moment in that continuum. But for the young people on this call involved in this project, I mean, if you don't put this at the top of your resume and the way in which this sets you apart from this, just the typical very talented music educator, I mean, what an incredible opportunity this has given you to have a very marketable skill set. And so I'm so happy for the young UTM connected folks who got to be part of this, because I mean, I'm telling you, this is a really neat thing for you to be able to talk about in your professional futures.
Carrie wants to talk. I saw that unmute.
Well, you know, from the beginning, I've just been really glad to be here. You know, my husband and I moved to Memphis last year, and it's just been kind of a year of new beginnings for us. And so it's really nice to be reunited with some people that I already know and love, and then to be able to have had the chance to meet Alexis and Leif and Fallon and get to work with everybody, and Katie and Ed, you know, just to have the chance to reconnect with those wonderful people and then do something that really made an impact on our world in a time of need. And it's just been really incredible. So, and Kat already said it, but I was planning on saying it too. You know, when Julie Hill asks, you say yes. And that's just what our life has been since we were in college. And it's been amazing to see the other professional opportunities that have come of that. So.
Well, I'd love to see you both. Not you didn't need that, but as Leif eloquently put it, and with Lizzie too, I mean, her ultimate goal is not to be in the position she's in right now. It's to be a national advocate. Who knows? We have positions that don't exist that you all need to fill. You need to advocate for positions that don't exist, that you would be very well suited for. And that's like what my hope is you all are incredible. And if this has helped a little bit in that way, then man, time well spent.
So there's a wealth of information that we have archived, but one of my favorite moments was Joshua Simons, the executive director of PAS, who said that, you know, all of these musicians who spent years and years studying how to play their instrument or to sing really well in these different ensembles and solo, and you know, when you take on different roles in different projects, you're not separating yourself as a musician, you're playing a new instrument. And so you're in a new ensemble. And I thought this was a really cool ensemble to be part of.
I like our band.
Love
Our band's really good.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We're over time and we're casual. So I'm looking at our script here, not knowing how to pace today. we don't have to talk about positive negatives anymore. Anybody else want to talk about some takeaways or future projects? I see some folks have added some bullet points in here since I put the script out.
I just wanted to mention that doing this and learning this and going from your vision, it has enabled TMEA to reach across the state, and not only across the state, but across the country. And because of that, we are sponsoring a webinar coming up at the end of the month. And I just wanted to give that a shout out real quick. It's going to be called Dream, Diversity, Resources, Equity, and Anti-Racism in Children's Music. And all of this, that would not be possible for TMEA to be able to continue the work of keeping the beat had it not been for Corona Connection and your vision, Julie. The panelists for that are going to be the owner of Girl Conductor and director of the St. Louis Children's Choir, Maria Ellis, Cobb County, Georgia music specialist, Christina Vihar, Kristen Leslie, and Kanisha Howard, and Metro Nashville Public Schools music elementary coach and owner of F. Willis Music, More Than a Music Teacher, Mr. Franklin Willis. So this is coming up, and we would not have the knowledge of how to do this or what was needed out there had it not been for this program. So thank you.
Of course, and it'll be interesting. Ed said, what's next season going to be like? And I would never at this point commit us to anything because I had no idea what I was asking for when I made that ask and everyone responded. But it's been so rewarding for the young people on the call, but also for the old people. I mean, I'm so gratified by the work that's been done, and we are all connecting with so many people in so many different ways right now that, I didn't know Leif hardly at all before this started. And now I would text him in a heartbeat in 2 seconds and just like, it's beautiful, it's weird and distance, but it's also incredibly connective and lovely. And I don't want to say what will happen here, but universities, high schools, K through 12, pre-K, we're all at any moment ready to change for next week with band camp, everything. So we don't know what's going to happen, but we also know that we have been through this and we can stay connected and we can adapt quickly if needed. And I think musicians do that better than anyone. And that gives us some comfort. And now we have sort of some platform. Alexis, you want to talk? I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to say, Julie, you didn't know that we did this, but we've been conspiring with your husband, all of us, to just do a little something for you. We wish we could do more. We wish we could see you. This is from all of us. We appreciate you. Thank you for all of your hard work, for your vision. We are so proud to be in your tribe and in your ensemble, Julie.
Expected. Thank you, honey. This is beautiful, you guys. Oh my God. I had no idea. That's gorgeous. Did you find that on Pinterest, Alexis?
No, actually, UTM alumni Joe Davis is experimenting with some woodworking, and he whips that up pretty quickly for us.
I don't deserve this. That's beautiful. Thank you all.
You absolutely do. We are so appreciative to you, Julie. Thank you for your vision. And we'll tell you later what we wanted to actually say on the card. That'll be our inside joke. But we appreciate your vision. We appreciate your professionalism and your attention to details and just making us better. So thank you, Julie.
Thanks, you guys. Didn't want this to be the me show, but I appreciate that. And I hope it just keeps on going. So shall we do the wrap up one last time?
Let's do it.
I just had one quick little question. I know we've been talking a lot about our archives, but will teachers still be able to get professional development credit from watching videos from the archives?
They absolutely can. We've got that PD certificate housed on the cnmea.org website. And if you have trouble finding it, just reach out to us and we'll let you know where it is.
I'm working on posting that in the comments.
Thanks, Kat. Team, super
Real-
great for all of y'all for being on tonight. And Caitlin, Chelsea, if you watch after the fact, thank you so much. And we'll wrap it up. So we haven't done this before. Everybody's unmuted. Thank you for following instructions. Thank you for tuning into this special and final regular episode of Keeping the Beat by TNMEA.
For 4 months, our goal has been to educate,
Motivate,
Advocate.
Challenge.
Inspire.
Our audience and our profession and all things music.
We hope you will share the Facebook and YouTube repository of KTB programs with your friends, students, and colleagues, as our only goal from the beginning with this series was to help as many people as possible, whether they lived in Tennessee or Thailand.
And I'm going to get on my soapbox for just a minute since the team said it was okay. But we hope that tonight's episode has given you some insight into the why, what, when, and how of keeping the beat at TNMEA. Please feel free to contact any members of our team should you have any remaining questions about what we talked about tonight or any time in the past 4 months. Lastly, a few parting and personal words. We must all do our part to advocate and demand action from our community, local and state officials and beyond. If we are to take steps towards true transformative change in our country, we have this opportunity now and we must seize it. We must help, we must chip in your social groups, your organizations, clubs, departments, schools, or any gathering. Look around the room. If you're in person, I said room or Zoom, at the next meeting you have, and take a quick survey of who you think is represented and who you think is not. And ask the question why people that should be there are not there. Don't be afraid to start that conversation. I've had this come up recently in my circles, and I'm in a very conservative area in Union City, Tennessee. And sometimes I think that we think people do not think the way we do, and we're afraid that we'll be criticized or just of what, that more than not, of late at least, they just are waiting for someone to speak out and to be their voice. Not everyone wants to be the initiator. So see what the roadblocks are, what can be done to remedy the disparity or inequality in the short term and the long term, whether it's COVID, social justice, which is the pandemic, or the next hurdle around the bend that we can't see. I think due to this, we'll be prepared for it, but with mutual respect, inclusion, and equal opportunities for all humans, we can get through anything together. We are not alone, but we have to speak up. And I'm so proud of this team and this program. And I thank you all for this last night of being on together with Keeping the Beat. And I thank you for the flowers and the beautiful plaque and for your friendship and love. And I hope that people have enjoyed this in part, and everyone have a safe and great night.
All right, if y'all stay on just a second, and I'll end the stream. Bye, Mac.
Namaste.